welcome back to hopefully not our final game day here at Feathers and Field Goals, but it is the last regular season game day. Delaware 5-6 after falling to Wake Forest. I want to just jump right into it so we can move on because we have a lot to get to this week. We have two interviews that I'm very excited about. Two six-year seniors, six-year grad students that have provided a lot to the program, and Ethan Saunders and Fintan Brose on both sides of the trenches. We have our normal pecking order and rival rundown, and we have our normal scout team with Dan. We'll run from the UTEP side of things. We'll jump into it right now, though. Brody, you experienced the fan game day as a Blue Hen in Winston-Salem. Just talk about your experience there, regardless of the score outcome.
Oh my God, it was humiliating. It's like going up to Monmouth and losing by like 100 points to Monmouth. 'Cause like you go to this stadium and it's way too big. There's like no one in the stands relative to the capacity of the bleachers. I turned to my girlfriend and I was like, "Do you think there's more people here or at the Louisiana Tech game?" And we both agreed that there was more at La Tech. And the band is like 25 kids, and Monmouth's band is also about like 25 kids, and like everyone, like in the grandstands is wearing like other schools merch. I was sitting next to a guy wearing Coastal Carolina. And like there was a bunch of Appalachian State window stickers in the parking lot that we parked in to walk over to the game. It was just humiliating because it's a team that beat us so bad, and like I don't know, it was honestly humiliating. You think about the way that they like went for two after their first touchdown, and then screwed it up and pissed down their leg. And then had to kick the extra point with their tail behind their legs. And then their next touchdown, they also went for two. What the fuck are they doing? What kind of a message are they trying to send? And all day there was nothing we could do about it. Just humiliating to have a team beat us by that much to a fan base that just doesn't care. It's absurd. You think about the last play or the last Wake Forest play before halftime, where they get the ball back after a turnover with 30 seconds left. There's no safety deep for Delaware. And like everyone in the stadium knows, like this is a team that's chasing their third 10-win season in their almost 140-year program history. Do you think they're not gonna like? Do you think they're not gonna put the dagger in you because they can? This is a team that's been like bitched out by the other Tobacco Road schools for 100 years. The one moment that they get to beat someone bad, they're obviously going to do it. I don't know why we don't put a safety deep for that play. It was honestly terrible. I think I would have had a better time cutting my own leg off with a butter knife than doing that again. But it was a beautiful day. It felt like August down there. And I guess in that way we got a good drive in. We got to go to Buc-ee's after, saw a bunch of James Madison and a couple Wazoo guys at Buc-ee's on the way back. Got home before midnight. So all in all, not too bad. But yeah, just humiliating. It's like losing to Monmouth. It's really not good.
Well, I hope you can forget about that experience because I think a non-conference like point at that in the mid-November season isn't fun for anyone. And maybe Wake. I know this wasn't supposed to happen at this point of the year when it was scheduled. I think right, Dan, in this perspective, but
I think at one point this Delaware Wake Forest game had been pushed back in the schedule. Yeah, just with schedule changes, maybe on the Wake end.
it throws off everything when you're getting in the momentum of the back half of the season. There was a point though in the game. It was 15-7. There was some hope there. I think the thing that I remember the most was after the Ellison 43-yard touchdown to make it 15-7. Which before that, Wake really wanted to go for two. It seemed like that before the false start when they had to take the extra point, and then when they went for two the second drive, they really wanted to go for two. Delaware scored a touchdown after that, which was the first touchdown in 2 games against the Wake defense. Wake on 2nd and 9 threw an incomplete pass, hurried by Ethan Saunders on the play, which in my eyes, I thought that was going to be ruled for grounding, based off of what the grounding rule that I thought was going to be this whole year. So I was like, okay, that'll be a flag at this point. Mm-hmm. Delaware will get the ball back down 8. And then the grounding was not called. And then Ashford on 3rd and 9 broke from the pocket for 43 yards. And in my eyes, that changed the whole game. Mm-hmm. It was 18-7. Delaware did bend on break for the defense at that point. But if Delaware got the ball back down 1 possession I think at this point it was still early second quarter. I think that changed. I think it changed everything. I don't want to focus on one play though. Dan, what are your thoughts from the game?
Yeah, I think realistically, I have to unfortunately give Delaware a decent-sized demerit for being out of the game by that margin against Wake Forest. This late in the year, you'd have liked to be able to better compare the Delaware-Colorado game with this Delaware-Wake Forest game. And Delaware didn't measure up against Wake Forest in the way that we felt the Blue Hens did fare pretty respectably against Colorado, at least up until the very end of that first half against Colorado, and then beginning of the second half that we talked about so much. In this game, it kind of felt like a repeat where you saw right before halftime, Wake Forest put that dagger in that made it feel just not practical for Delaware on this day. And I think fans and diehards included here in this recording probably felt the sting that this had the vibe of like an FCS versus FBS game more than it did have the vibe of a G6 against Power Conference game within the FBS, which obviously factually it was that game within the FBS. But yeah, discouraging. I know more alarm bells about November go off, but I think when I step back and look in the totality, it's like, okay, Power Conference game wasn't a good matchup with that strength of defense in the ACC against the Delaware offense that was missing Joe Silver again, although Byron Ellison, a bright spot that I know you'll touch on and highlight, Bryce. I just look at the matchup against a Power Conference foe being pretty challenging and taking a step back and saying, okay, that shouldn't dictate how Delaware looks in what is, in effect, another playoff type of game against UTEP back at home. Looking at this case in Conference USA play, trying to close out the regular season with a win, which has been elusive for this program due to the rivalry game history in this slot. And now you get to mix it up. You're at home facing a team that's making a really long trip. I know we'll get into everything about UTEP later on in the show, but I think turning the page will be critical while also being clear-eyed about it's just another one of those cases of ball security. You look at that's an athletic Wake Forest defense, but my gosh, a Delaware fumble helps open the door for trouble again. And I do think that that's just an Achilles heel that we'll keep talking about until we don't have a reason to, hopefully as soon as this week. But I was a little bit confused about some reaction online about Nick Minicucci. Like, Nick Minicucci, the unquestioned starter of this team, dating back to Zach Marker going down, Nick Minicucci gives you a fighting shot in every single game. He's been a gamer, to use that cliche. His numbers, some will say, when Delaware's had to pass the ball around and come from behind. Well, okay, I mean, Nick Minicucci keeps you in ball games, and it's not just Minicucci doing it by himself. I just wanted to mention that. It's not as if Nick Minicucci not being good enough somehow was a reason that Delaware didn't hang around against Wake Forest. Like, I didn't see the game that way. I know that ultimately offensive success or lack thereof can kind of lead to and stop with the QB and the offensive-minded head coach, and that can be the case. Realistically, I'm not going to dispute that in general, but in this scenario, I don't walk away feeling any less confident about, hey, Nick Minicucci should be the guy with plenty of leash against UTEP. Like, I wasn't quite sure I understood seeing some comments online about, well, like Braden Streeter, another highlight we'll talk about. thought Braden Streeter managed well against Wake Forest in the time that he came in, and was important that he did manage that time pretty well. But so I'm not meaning to disparage him at all. Much the opposite. But yeah, just some of my overall Wake Forest thoughts were definitely disappointing that Delaware did not measure up anywhere close, just in the way it performed. A lot of room on defense. Thinking about the way Wake Forest runs the ball, those short passes by Ashford that wound up with a lot of room for yards after the catch. That really sticks in my mind, and I'm sure is bothering Delaware a little bit. Just having consecutive losses, that adds to it. But to me, this Wake Forest game is the extension of the punishment you get for being upset at Sam Houston. And so now, how does Delaware respond in totality to all of this by being back at home on senior day against the UTEP with a possible postseason to play for too? So all those things combined for me, and looking at a mixture of the good and the bad, and pushing back a little bit on some of these thoughts about Minicucci. Not that they were widespread, but unless I was just misreading or misunderstanding, I had to put that out there a little bit early on here in this program. I don't get questioning Minicucci at this point. I don't understand it.
I really hope that going into UTEP, the messaging is about hitting 6 wins, is about the possibility of a bowl game. Because Carty, he did add prior to the Sam Houston game that's not his messaging. He hates to put out a goal for his players. Because he said after that goal is attained, that's when you fall off a cliff. That his coaching is all about just going 1-0 like every week. And then, of course, they lose to Sam Houston, and now hitting that 6-win mark, it comes down to one game. And I really do hope that the messaging is this is the last game of the season. If you want any chance at a backdoor postseason appearance, or just finishing this year with a 6-6 record, this is the time to go and do that, because we blew it at Sam Houston in a game that we had every right to win.
Yeah, I had a feeling that this Wake game wasn't going to go our way, and I knew it was going to open up more doors to the Sam Houston game. I kind of want to hit on a couple of the positives from the Wake game before we move on to UTEP, which is the program's focus at this point at 5-6. We're going to get to a bunch of interviews that I think showed that their question was, are we going to be able to win FBS games? And I think they've proven that, but still some question marks in that stance. But I'm very proud of both KT Say and Nasir Eatman for both of their plays on defensive end and the back end. Both 2 interceptions there at the end. Robbie Ashford, I think we talked about it before the week, a really tough runner, but he did enforce the Delaware defense on the passing game downfield. But those two did make plays on the defensive end at crucial times. The KT Say play hopefully would have ended in points with Delaware. I think maybe that changes a little bit in the second half in terms of how the final score ends up. I'm not saying that anywhere near Delaware wins the game, but I do think that set them up in a great moment to the turnover points at that point. I'm looking at Jared Porter, who comes in at the end of the game and makes a lot of plays out of the backfield, and both of a runner and a receiver. I was very impressed by Jared Porter, and I was very impressed by him as a recruit who was able to finally get back out. And 6 carries for 27 yards, and then 2 catches for 15 yards. Moved the chains a lot, and I think his first game as a Blue Hen, he was able to really stand out at the point in the game he was allowed in. And Braden Streeter, I know Dan covered of what we don't want to talk about, but Braden Streeter did control the offense, I think, pretty well in the end of the game. So I think it shows the depth that the Blue Hens have. I think that needs to be the message of positives at this point is...
Bryce, one more positive. I know you want to touch on Brendan Locke, who deserves a lot of praise as well. As far as the punting job he's done, really, most of the year that I can remember.
Yeah, Brendan Locke, I think, set the Delaware defense up for a lot of success in this game. 5 punts, three inside the 20. One of them went for 50 plus yards in this game. I think in the first half, Brendan Locke set the defense up for a lot of chances to keep the offense into this game. The defense, I think Wake Forest had a couple of 80 plus yard drives in the first half, but I think Brendan Locke set up the defense to find success and momentum for the offense to build off of this game. So I'm glad you shouted out Brandon Locke. I think he deserves a lot of credit for this one. He even forced a penalty, roughing the punter penalty. I want to give it to him because it could have been blocked. And once you get the ball, the contact doesn't matter at that point. So he got the contact first and it was able to push the chains. But I know 3 plays later he had to step out on the field to punt it again. So I feel for him, but he had a great performance in Winston-Salem himself. So before I turn the table, I'm glad that Dan gave me the chance to shout out Brendan as well. He had a really solid performance in Winston-Salem, and we're gonna turn the table onto what matters in Week 14 here. But there's some of the positives we want to bring up until we get there. But now we want to jump into our interview, Inside the Huddle, Part 1, with Ethan Saunders on the defensive side of the ball to kick off our Senior Day appreciation Feathers and Field Goals. Here for Inside the Huddle today for Feathers and Field Goals. One of two great interviews, starting with first captain on the defensive end inside the trench mob. We have defensive end Ethan Saunders joining us today. Ethan, just overall, thanks so much for everything you provided for the program, everything that these past 6 years is crazy to look back from the class of 2020 till now. Just thinking, I think, damn, you were 21, I was 19. So it's crazy to just, in hindsight, looking at this journey. But just thanks for being here today, and thanks for everything you provided the program.
Of course, awesome. Great opportunity here, two Delaware alums that love the program so much. It's a great opportunity to come talk to you guys, and just really thankful for the opportunity I've had in this program.
How has the 2020 season for you, the first in the program's FBS history, been from your perspective on the field?
I think it's been a trying season. I think that a lot of us have been so accustomed to, I'd say, dominance and being really successful in, the CAA, and just understanding that this is a different ball game. It's a different league. You come into the season kind of with a lot of unknowns. We didn't know what competition level was going to be like, what was realistic and what we could achieve. But I think as we've navigated this season, I think we've understood that, we are much closer to being really good in this league than the latter, So I think that's promising and gives and builds confidence for the future. And I think this team has battled, and any adversity that we felt it and faced it together. And I think that we've been united through it all.
Ethan, I want to echo what Bryce said. It's great to have you here, a real treat, and thanks for making time on a game week, and then also there's a holiday this week, so the whole 9 yards. But as much as we'll look forward to UTEP in a little bit, I'm curious to get back in the Wayback Machine a little bit. If you could recount some of your earliest memories of starting out in the Delaware football program, just thinking about, Bryce mentioned your class year. Just it really is going back a ways, maybe, to think about some of those earliest first impressions you had first getting involved at Delaware.
Certainly, it's the craziest thing is, a lot of the freshmen and a lot of the young guys that are on our team now were in middle school when I first got to college. So you want to talk about feeling old, talking to these guys, and when you got here, I was in middle school. I had barely hit puberty. It's it's so surreal to think about that. But when I first stepped on this campus and joined this team, I really was just trying to be a guy that I tried to stay under the radar. I was trying to do everything right. I wasn't trying to be someone that got called out for doing things wrong. I think I had a great group of leaders that were on the team and in my position group whenever I first arrived, guys like Frank Burton, Artis Hemingway, and then you think of leaders like, Kedrick Whitehead, Johnny Buchanan, guys that really did a good job indoctrinating us young guys, no matter who we were. I was a walk-on, whether you were a walk-on scholarship guy, they did a good job indoctrinating us, making sure we were all moving the same way to make this team win games. And I think that's kind of led me to where I am now, and understanding I got to do the same thing because of the guys that did it before me. I now have that right, or I have that requirement, to do that for the next generation. I've tried to do it the best I could. It might be a little different than those guys did for me, but I think it's important to put your own flavor on it and make sure that you do it in the most comfortable way that's authentic to you.
those are great names that I haven't. Artis Hemingway, that's a name I haven't thought of in a while. So I'm glad you shouted out Artis and a lot of great names on the defensive side of the ball from I'd say all three of our starts as Delaware students. But you, Ethan, you've always been a leader. You've been a captain twice in 2023 and this year. You were class president at Waynesboro Area Senior High School. I saw that on the bio. What has it meant to you to wear the C for the blue and gold multiple times in your career?
It means so much, just, and really one of the reasons that I came to this university is just the story tradition. You hear all the names, obviously, the Flaccos stick out, but there's so many more names that when you're a true football historian that I try and be in myself, you understand the value and richness that is this history of Delaware football. And I think that I just try to, own it and be the best version of myself I can be and trying to just represent that in the best way possible. I try and, stay out of trouble, do the right thing, and also bring guys along. Like I said, I have that requirement that's required of me to do that and make sure that the next generation keeps Delaware rolling.
Thinking back to fall camp, actually, and preseason and the media day availability for defensive linemen, when you are participating in that one, you're asked about the transition season this season, what it means to you. And Bryce recalled that you responded with, basically to the effect of, now we've got to go out there and have a great year to really be remembered for those right reasons, not just be remembered for, it was the first year, but it's really make it a good one. So what will the defense need to do on Saturday against UTEP? One more conference game, one more home game. What needs to get done in order for it to be a strong finish to that final memory for the regular season in 2025?
Yeah, I think it comes back to, being together. I think that something we've learned defensively is, there's always going to be some adversity. I think as a team, we've learned that. And that's not going to be perfect. As much as we want to go shut everybody out and give up, less than 100 yards of total offense, that's not realistic. There's a lot of great offensive play calls, a lot of great offenses in terms of talent on the field. I think that we've got to be able to weather the storms of what happens through the course of the game. I think, obviously, you look at stopping the run as being the number one thing you got to do to be a good defense in any game. That opens up a lot of things, makes teams predictable, and allows us to get exotic and do different things on third down, especially when it's third and obvious. But I think just the trust and the belief that we have in what we're doing and who we're doing it with, I think is paramount for us defensively to go out and be successful against UTEP.
Ethan, there's been a lot of great memories this season in the Tub. There's been the homecoming game against Louisiana Tech. There's the UConn overtime game was super exciting. The defense made a stop multiple stops. They made a stop to force overtime and a stop to create the win. What is your favorite memory in the Tub? Or I guess I'll just extend it to just overall your 6 seasons in Newark.
Selfishly, I'm going to say the Ethan Saunders touchdown on the fumble recovery against.
I remember asking you that in the fall camp
last year, and that's the selfish of me coming out there. I think, you go back to all the playoff wins, at the FCS level that were in the Tub. I think those bring a lot of value. Also, the Navy win sticks out to me. I think that, you go on the road to an FBS opponent who in that season turned out to be fairly, formidable. I think that really sticks out, that kind of ushered in the Cardi era. We all have the T-shirts, proud to be a blank blue hen. I think that's a very iconic moment in the Delaware history. I think that's going to stick out as we continue to be a formidable foe in the CUSA and FBS football. I think that's going to be something that you look at and say, okay, this was the inflection point of this program, kind of taking that new steps and reaching a new height.
Looking at Saturday versus UTEP, Senior Day, of course, in Newark. Do you know who will be walking with you on Senior Day? Just the whole festivities, who's going to be on hand for that for you?
For me, I always have the same people that come to my games. So my mom, Kim, my father, Mark, my grandmother, Ann, and my aunt, Michelle. Those will be coming out with me. Maybe my uncle as well. I'm not sure, Uncle Chuck. But those are the people that have been my rock pretty much in my entire career, my entire life. And I wouldn't want to have it any other way of who comes out there with me.
Well, shout out to them. Looking forward to seeing them step out on the field with you. And shout out to Ethan for joining us here today for our first interview on Inside the Huddle for our final regular season edition of Inside the Huddle. So thanks so much, Ethan, for your time. As Dan said, this busy holiday season, end of fall, and thanks for everything you've done for the program.
Awesome. Thank you guys for having me, man. Thank you both for all you do for this program, man. Thank you.
Before we get to the pecking order, Dan, show us this notebook that Coach Cardi was talking about in the press conference.
Yeah, I got to show it off here. This little booklet. I mean, it's not a huge notebook or anything, but it's got some decor. My mom put together. She was working on this crafts package, or had this thing going on, and had some scraps, or I should say better than scraps. I mean, it's turned out great. So I had it with some notes in there for a media availability, and Coach noticed I had it open as I was referring to it. So I appreciate him shouting it out. So anyway, maybe there's more where this came from. TBD. There may be more where this came from, but it's neat little thing. So shout out to the family on this Thanksgiving week.
Shout out to Mrs. Steenkammer, and shout out to Coach Cardi for noticing it, because, we've gotten conversations. We need to point out this notebook that Coach Cardi's talked about. And for there, we had to show it before the season ending. But now let's get into Brody's rundown of the pecking order and rival rundown.
Well, thank you, Bryce. I did it a little bit differently this week because we're so close to the end of the year. I decided to rank these teams by their worst loss and best win. So I'm just going to put it up on the screen. We have it's kind of an interesting analysis when you comes down to it, but I'm just going to hop right in. I'll kind of explain my rankings here. So at the last spot we have 2-9 Middle Tennessee. Their worst loss, of course, coming against Austin P, their FCS school that didn't even hit the playoff this year. Their best win is against Sam Houston. Next is 2-9 UTEP. Their worst loss, of course, coming last week against New Mexico State. Their best win coming against Sam Houston as well. Now, Sam Houston is an interesting one because they're also 2-9, but I would say that based on their positive momentum the last few weeks, they definitely deserve to be higher than UTEP and Middle, despite having lost to both of them throughout the course of the year. Sam Houston's worst loss is to Middle Tennessee. Their best win is to Delaware. They also have that win against Oregon State in Oregon, so that's a big deal for them. Number 9, we have New Mexico State University. They don't have a lot of bad losses. They don't have a lot of good wins. This team kind of just had a rough schedule this year. I'm kind of glad that we don't play them this year because they seem better than their record shows. They're losing to a lot of the teams that they should lose to, and they're beating the teams that they should beat. But there's just not a whole lot of spark in their performances. Here we have number 8, pretty low considering the record. 7-4 Missouri State. They don't have a lot of bad losses. They played USC. They have SMU, they have Western Kentucky, and Kennesaw. Those are all teams I think you should lose to if you're in Missouri State's shoes. But you look at their wins, have FIU, which might be their best win. They have a Liberty, which could be their best win. But besides that, you have UTEP, Middle Tennessee, New Mexico State, and a Marshall team that was completely dead at the start of this year, as well as their FCS opponent. So I have them here at 8 just because they haven't really beaten anybody, and all the good teams they've played, they've lost. Of course, coming close against Kennesaw, but just not getting the job done there at the end. Number 7, we have Liberty, 4-7. Their worst losses are to FIU and Bowling Green. Best win comes against Delaware. The only time this year that this team has looked like they've wanted to win something comes against us. So, great. Have FIU kind of climbing the ranks. Their worst losses are to Delaware and UConn. But their best wins, they have some crazy wins. Of course, at home against Jacksonville State this weekend, but also on the road against Western Kentucky. This team, I don't really know what to do with them. They're kind of like Delaware in the sense that their resume this year is just really weird. It's kind of all over the place. Not really sure how to rank them, but I have them here for reasons that will become clear. Number 5, we have La Tech. Their worst loss comes to Kennesaw. That's not really even a bad loss because Kennesaw is my number 1 team. But their best win Again, it's not really anybody. You know, you have New Mexico State, who they beat, Southern Miss, UTEP, Sam Houston, and Liberty. I guess Liberty's the best win there, but how many people can Liberty be the best win for before, you know, I don't know, it's not considered a good win anymore. I don't know. It's tough. They almost beat LSU. They came close, but not as close as some other teams on this list. So moving on to Delaware, who's kind of high here. Of course, I'm going to put them kind of high, but I do have reasoning behind that. Their worst losses against Sam Houston. Besides that, they've beaten everybody they're kind of supposed to beat. And then their best wins, they have a few. They have UConn, they have Louisiana Tech, and they dominated FIU. So for that reason, I think that they belong here. Their losses, you look like on the road against Jacksonville State, a very good Jacksonville State team. They have like Liberty, who decided to turn it on against us and didn't turn it on again all year. So that might be kind of a bad loss, but not worse than the Sam Houston loss, which stands out as the worst of the year. A very close loss to Western Kentucky at home that could have gone either way, but just went to the toppers. So they're here at number 4. Number 3 is Jacksonville State. They were my number 1 team for the past 5 or 6 weeks. But they beat Kennesaw, but then they go ahead and lose to FIU on the road, and that's just a tough loss to take. Of course, it doesn't take them out of contention for a conference championship game, but in terms of their resume, their best win is Kennesaw. Of course, Delaware at home. The worst losses come to FIU and Georgia Southern. Number 2 is Western Kentucky. Another team whose worst loss is FIU. We're kind of seeing that a lot, where FIU and Sam Houston are a lot of teams' worst losses this year. And then we also have a best win. I want to say LSU. I really wish they pulled that one off, but they didn't. But they did beat Louisiana Tech and Delaware. So those are 2 pretty quality wins for Western Kentucky. And then Kennesaw, their worst loss. They don't really have a worst loss. Their worst loss comes against Jacksonville State, in Jacksonville, and that's not really a bad loss, I don't think. And then their best win, almost Wake Forest. They almost beat Wake Forest. They absolutely dominated FIU. They dominated Louisiana Tech. This is easily the best team in the conference. I think if the conference championship game is in Kennesaw, and they're playing either Western Kentucky or Jacksonville State, I have the Owls winning, because I just think that this team is kind of different. There are only 2 losses besides Jack State are to Power 5 opponents. And as we mentioned, they almost beat Wake Forest. I'm not sure how much of that is Wake Forest trying to put the wheels on kind of early and struggling. Maybe having a better offensive identity once they hit us. But, I mean, these are all strong points on Kennesaw's resume. So that's my pecking order. It honestly kind of looks... I don't know. It looks kind of good once you kind of zoom out and look at it. I think Missouri State looks really low because of their record. I think Delaware looks kind of high because of their record, but all in all, I think this is pretty good. Now on a rival rundown, we have a couple of rivals to talk about. James Madison hangs on against Wazoo. I know all of us were hoping that they would drop that to Wazoo. I wasn't watching that game, but I did see a lot of JMU fans at the I-81 Buc-ee's. Right there, I did see a couple Wazoo guys as well, as I might have mentioned earlier. Coastal Carolina is looking better than last year, which isn't really saying a lot, but they might be scary next year. depending on how this offseason goes for them. Temple might miss bowl eligibility. They need a win at North Texas after dropping one at home to Tulane. And that's a very interesting storyline. They come in 5-4. Now they're no, I don't know. They might miss a bowl, is what I'm saying. I don't have it in front of me what their records was at the time. And then UConn is receiving votes in the AP poll, which is exciting and could be kind of cool if they got ranked just for our purposes. 6-6 with a ranked win at the end of the year looks a lot better than 6-6 and you don't. Of course, we're counting our blue hens here before they hatch with this UTEP game on the horizon. But I'm allowed to do that. The team is not. And that's all I have for the rival rundown.
Well, Brady, I'll jump into the bowl tracker before. This is probably the only time we get a chance to do this because after this year, if Delaware gets to 6 wins, we're not worried about this segment at this point. But it's an exciting time for a team to jump up to the FBS level for Delaware at their 2-year transition. Delaware at this point, so at 5-6, if they win week 14 against UTEP and they get to 6-6, they are technically not eligible unless there's not enough bowl eligible teams that we've seen actually plenty of years. We saw Jacksonville State and rivals James Madison receive a bowl game because there weren't enough bowl eligible teams in their seasons. So for Delaware, Missouri State, we've been tracking this since they got the 5 wins against Louisiana Tech on that big comeback, exciting win that I think we'll talk about for a long time. Delaware at 5-6. At this point, to get to a bowl game, I have no reason to not think that the Bahamas Bowl is going to be rescheduled somewhere in the U.S. I saw a lot of people try to change their magic number to +2 because this game is just fully canceled. I have no reason to believe that's not the case. I think that they're going to find a way to make it into the U.S. So at this point, I have a magic number of 13 with 21 teams left. So this means we need 13 of these 21 teams to lose if Delaware wins their game against UTEP to move on. This number actually drops to 10 with 15 remaining because 3 of these 5-6, or I guess 6 of these 5-6 teams play each other. With Rutgers playing Penn State 5-6 versus 5-6, the winner we really don't care about at this point. The winner is going to be a 6 win. The loser is going to be 5-7. Similar with 2 Sunbelt teams. Georgia Southern playing against Marshall and Appalachian State playing against Arkansas State. So we can drop this number down to 10 with 15 teams remaining. So we need 5 of the rest of these teams, rest of the 15 teams to lose moving forward. We need Florida State, who plays at Florida, to lose, which is currently a pick'em game. Army at UTSA. UTSA is currently a 6.5-point favorite. Temple at North Texas. North Texas is currently like a 3-touchdown favorite. We have Rice at USF, which is currently a 3-touchdown favorite. Baylor, Houston. We need Houston to win this game. Baylor's 5-6. Houston 8-3. Houston is currently, it's close to a pick'em, but Houston is currently a slight favorite on the road at Baylor. Kansas versus Utah. Utah is a heavy favorite against the Jayhawks. Kansas State versus Colorado, which Delaware fans have been prepared for, playing against the Buffaloes. And Kansas State is a heavy favorite against Colorado heading into this matchup. 5-6 Kansas State versus 3-8 Colorado. 5-6 UCF at 10-1 BYU, which is hoping for a college football playoff spot, ranked 11 before the newest edition of the rankings. I think BYU is a heavy favorite heading into this matchup. Buffalo is home against 7-4 Ohio. This is maybe more of a question mark. Ohio is definitely a favorite in this matchup, but the MAC action, you never know what will happen. Washington State is home against Oregon State. Oregon State is 2-9. Washington State is 5-6. We need Oregon State to win this one for our bowl tracker, but Oregon State has won the first matchup between the two matchups these two will face against each other this season. The Egg Bowl, Ole Miss versus Mississippi State. This is at Ole Miss, this is at Mississippi State, which is 5-6 versus 10-1 Ole Miss. We're rooting for Ole Miss in this one. One of the best rivalries in college football, 5-6 Kentucky at 7-4 Louisville. We are definitely rooting for the Cardinals. And then a 5-6 Auburn hosting 9-2 Alabama, which another great rivalry at 7:30 on Saturday. We'll see if Delaware is at 6-1 at this point. We are rooting for Alabama to knock off Auburn in this. And then the last two Sunbelt games. Both of these teams are heavily favored in this. Louisiana 5-6 over Louisiana Monroe in a rivalry game, but it is at Louisiana Lafayette in this one. And Texas State 5-6 hosting 4-7 South Alabama. I think both of them are currently 9.5-point favorites. So bringing it back to, I think they will. The Bahamas Bowl, everyone's been saying that will not be rescheduled. It's canceled. I think it'll be rescheduled in the U.S. state. Delaware needs to worry about, I think, about 5 of these teams losing this game. 5 minimum. More than 5 would be nice from the 15 bubble teams remaining from this matchup. A long talk from Brody and I, but we will push now to Dan, focused on the Inside the Huddle, part 2 with Fintan Brose, the offensive trenches, to focus on his time here at Delaware before me and him jump into our conversation with him. Now welcoming in an offensive side of the trenches here. Well, I guess Fintan has experience on both sides of the trenches in his 6-year career here in Newark, but excited to now welcome Delaware offensive lineman Fintan Brose, captain of the 2025 season, to the show. Fintan, thanks for joining us here this afternoon.
Of course, thanks, guys.
We asked Ethan the same thing. First off, we'll start with, how has the 2025 season been from your perspective so far? I know heading into 2024, you said you didn't know that 2025 was possible from your perspective, so I'm sure you've appreciated that this was the outcome now.
Correct. I'm definitely happy in my decision and staying and playing with the fellas this final year and the first year of FBS football. I think that, it's been I would say it's a great experience, great season, great opportunity this season is what I would say. I think that, we were able to show that, we can win games in FBS football. We can win games in FCS football. It didn't matter. But I think that, for us, like all Delaware fans, we expect to win every game. And that's just the way it is. And I think as long as we keep that tradition and that mentality towards winning, Delaware football is going to do great things.
I know that's music to a lot of folks' ears, Fintan. So it's great to hear you share that, and somebody who's lived it. You're somebody who's lived it over this number of years now, all heading towards senior day on Saturday. Want to go back, like we did with Ethan, looking back in the Wayback Machine. Earliest memories of first arriving at the University of Delaware, getting started defensive line play, just first getting involved with Delaware football. Of course, we know great memories of Braden Brose as well on the squad and on campus. What are the things that stick back out to you as you look back at your earliest years?
I guess my first earliest memory of Delaware football as a whole was when Coach Rojas and Coach Rocco visited my brother, Braden. And that would have been my sophomore year of high school. So that's when I made that connection. Ever since then, I knew that I wanted to play football with my brother in college. That was my ultimate goal. And, getting here, I feel like I had maybe an advantage over other people because I hung with my brother and I knew what the standard was and I wanted to do whatever I could to play and contribute and yeah I've been grateful enough to be on this team and I'm very happy I did.
How has it been for you in the versatility of starting on the defensive side of the ball and then moving to offense in 2022, but really just working your way through? I know Coach Rogers, he preaches the offensive versatility where you can't just play as a tackle, you can't just play as a guard or a center, but you've had a little bit of everything in your time here at Delaware. So how's that been really experiencing versatility to its max in Newark?
I think it's been a great experience. You keep everything fresh. Kind of how I always think of it. But on the real, I think that I've had some phenomenal coaches here. It's very hard to, I guess, play different positions well, and I've had some struggles, some down periods, some learning curves, but I think my coaches have helped me so much, defense side of the ball, offense side of the ball, that they were able to put me in positions for me to succeed.
Fintan, a number of highlights this year, just looking at this season, big wins. The team's really been pretty mentally tough and resilient coming back from the valleys of the season too, and going through a pretty high level of competition throughout an FBS season. But for not just this year, over the years, looking at victories on and off the field, really perhaps highlight memory. Is there one or two of a biggest memory as far as your Delaware career? It not including, of course, coming up against UTEP.
Yeah, there's been so many great ones over the course. I think back of maybe, the first most fondest memory I had was beating Villanova to win the CAA championship in my first season. That was something special, and that's when us as younger guys knew that this is like we kind of got the bigger picture of this is a special place, even though we were through the COVID season and whatnot. This is a special place, and then going towards this year. My fondest memory was the UConn game. I thought that was a fantastic finish. It showed who we are as a program, and that was definitely my fondest moment this year.
Was that your first game transitioning off of center to guard? Is that part of the reason? Did you like stepping back? You could push more upfield.
Yeah, I was able to play left guard that game. That was the first game.
Yeah. So, but thinking ahead to UTEP now, and I know this one, you always focus on the next game at hand. This one's the final one circled in the regular season schedule. You just played a really strong defense in Wake Forest. What does the offense need to focus on Saturday heading into this regular season finale, hopefully ending with a win?
I think, if you look back at when we've been successful on offense, it's when we start fast. I think that'll be very important for us. I really love to get the ball first, go down there and score and get on that board. I think that's when we've been most successful. Once we get in our groove, and I think we'll be all right. I think there's been periods of time where we've had a lull in our offensive production throughout the games, but I think that if we're able to limit those lulls and just keep on track and keep that train pushing, then that we'll be very successful on offense and we'll have a great last game.
Bryce, I want to jump in. Additional question for Fintan here while we've got the time is thinking about this year in total, blocking up front for Nick Minicucci at quarterback. Nick, a player you're used to protecting in pass protection going back to, we can think of the 2023 season. Of course, we know in the 2024 transition season, you wound up preserving that eligibility. So maybe it didn't overlap with Nick as much in game action, but got to think that over the course of the year, that evolution of seeing Nick continue to be tough as nails and had to take a ton of snaps and play quite well in them. Really give your team a chance in so many games. That's got to be pretty good feeling to have a guy back there in the QB play overall. But I'm thinking about just this year, your experience with Nick.
Yeah, Nick's been absolutely great for us. He's I love blocking for him. He treats the fellas right, number one, which that's always great to hear. But and number two, he's just tough as nails. You love having a guy back there who's going to make a play. He's going to puff his chest out, and he's a winner, and you love having that guy behind you, and you trust him.
Someone who maybe likes to get hit too much. I'm sure maybe that keeps you a little unsettled sometimes.
I tell him all the time. I was like, listen, I know that you want to get that first hit in, but we don't want you to get hit at all.
Thinking back on senior day before, which if the coin toss is won or lost and Delaware gets the ball first, I'll be thinking of you, Fintan, after this, thinking that Delaware wants the ball first. But before the game starts, who will be walking by your side on senior day? I'm guessing Braden will be there next to you to kick things off for an exciting festivities before the game starts.
Yeah, Braden will definitely be there. My father John and my mother Lisa, they'll be walking with me, and then I'll have a group of friends and family that are closest to me. They'll definitely be in the stands, and I'm super grateful that they'll be there for my last game.
Hey, that's awesome to hear. I love that. A family feel on a big time, family holiday kind of vibe this week. You guys are, especially players who are older on the roster, they're used to playing on Thanksgiving week, right? I mean, this routine, actually, I'm wondering if that helps a little bit, thinking about FCS playoff opening rounds and now another home game on a Thanksgiving week. Of course, this one you guys knew on the schedule as part of the regular season in the FBS.
Yeah, I think it definitely helps. It's a similar schedule to, what we've had the past couple years. You go through your week, and then you get a little bit of time for your Thanksgiving dinner. Not too much time. We still got practice and meetings and whatnot, but it's been the same schedule the past 3 years, and we're used to it, like you said, and that's going to be great.
Well, Fintan, thankful for you for joining us here at Feathers and Field Goals today, and thankful for you for your outstanding 6-year career wearing the blue and gold. So thanks for everything you provided the program on the field, and thank you for providing this great interview for us today. So best of luck Saturday, and hope the Hens can cap off the regular season with the win.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much. Appreciate it.
Now, moving on from our conversation with Fintan into our conversation focus on UTEP is Dan with our UTEP scout team with Adrian Broaddus of Minor Talk.
The Feathers and Field Goals podcast continues, and now welcoming in for our scout team segment for this week, UTEP at Delaware. It's Adrian Broaddus of 600 ESPN El Paso. He's the host of Minor Talk on 600 AM out there in El Paso. A native of El Paso as well, is my understanding. It's Adrian Broaddus. Hey, Adrian, thank you so much for taking the time during Thanksgiving week. We were just talking before hitting record about the busy holiday week schedule, and you're filling a bunch of roles over at the station this week. So carving out some time for us on this last regular season game week, it's much appreciated.
Hey, I appreciate you guys. I mean, I never thought I'd be doing a podcast with somebody from Delaware 5 years ago. What is going on in Conference USA? This conference is all over the place. But I guess that makes it fun. I guess there's some magic to that. For the Miners, this is their final game in Conference USA. So congratulations, man. The UTEP gets to close out their Conference USA run in football against Delaware on the road.
Hey, it should be an honor for the Blue Hens. They're trying to make good on it. They're trying to kind of right the ship on their own season. Delaware shooting for 6-6 overall in the regular season and keeping a backdoor bowl hope alive. UTEP, though, a different story, Adrian, and you've been covering it all year long, seeing head coach Scotty Walden and his group navigate a pretty challenging schedule. But just starting with the big picture view, I know in preseason your comments had been a little bit more caution for UTEP's expectations this season. A lot of excitement going into the year for Coach Walden's team. And you were maybe cautioning folks saying, hey, maybe around 5 wins would be the mark that you'd be looking for. And it just hasn't gone that way for UTEP this year. What is your overall sense of the state of the program with Coach Walden and how things have gone this year?
Yeah, they went different routes this year, trying to find what worked best for them, Daniel. It's interesting because, they started the year with Malachi Nelson, closing out the year with Skylar Locklear, who looked like the clear, viable option to move the football for them all season long. And they made that decision first in the Sam Houston road game, which they ended up winning. But the problem is, Daniel, Skylar's only won 1 game under his belt. Malachi has 1 win under his belt. And this team is what it is. It's a bad team. It's they might finish out the season 2-10. So I think this is a disappointment of, kind of a year 2 output. Scotty Walden yesterday in his availability maintained that they're building something, that they've got a foundation in place, that they've really, enjoyed seeing some of the younger talent like Ashton Emery, their running back, Josh Schutz, their tight end who's filled in this year, and even some of their younger wide receivers like Jalen Brown and Wandemi Davis really step up. So they'll maintain that they like the output that their younger players have done for the first time they've played at this level, I would just say that it's year-to-year roster making. It's year-to-year winning, and you can't take a roster for granted. You can't take these young players for granted. So the offseason will tell us a lot about how this team wants to build moving forward, and a much tougher schedule next year, obviously, going to the Mountain West. This year, I thought the schedule was favorable, Daniel. I'll push back just a little and say that I felt like the Miners could find their way to 5, 6, maybe even 7 wins, given the talent on their defense primarily. I mean, this was a top 3 defense in Conference USA all season long. And, you know, as a team, they just can't get it done. And I think winning's a mentality. I think you have to go out there and think that you are going to do it and think you're going to beat the other opponent. And I don't know if UTEP's ready to do that yet.
No, I hear your points, and looking at the schedule on paper going into the year, it shouldn't have been this much of a steep climb, no pun intended, for, I guess, Miners, not necessarily Mountaineers. You know, I shouldn't even say that's a pun, but anyhow, you know, you can tell it's a first-time meeting, UTEP and Delaware. I don't even know what puns I'm going to pull off in the middle of the interview. But you mentioned a couple names there, and one of them being Skylar Locklear at quarterback taking over as the starter. What did he do in order to win the job, in order to supplant Malachi Nelson at QB?
Well, maybe it wasn't so much of what he didn't do. It was what Malachi did or didn't do. Like, Malachi had a ton of turnovers when he was with UTEP, just wasn't winning games, wasn't scoring as much for the Miners over the last, you know, handful of games. Miners have averaged almost 27 points, which doesn't sound like a lot offensively, but sure, a lot better than what they've done before. I mean, last year as a team, they averaged around 19. So to get over that hump, I guess it's a little bit better. To move the ball is a little bit better. Skylar Locklear adds the running element to it, and I think their identity in the future is to be a run-oriented squad. So they're going to need to figure that part out as well, whether they want a mainstay running back or continue to grow and develop with Ashton Emery, whether they want a new quarterback next year in 2026, or if they'll roll with Skylar Locklear. Like, they're going to have to figure a lot of these out and how that translates to wins, because at the end of the day, Daniel, you know, you and I could talk about superlatives, we could talk about stats, we could talk about all these kinds of things offensively. Scotty Walden calls the plays. This team is expected to put up points, and this team is expected next year to win games, and they're going to have to figure that out in the offseason.
Ashton Emery at running back, a name that we've come to a couple times here, listed as a freshman here. I'm seeing along ESPN's roster for the Miners. I always specify how ESPN's characterizing it, because the class years and over the years, they don't always on ESPN get the exact red shirts all down. So you can clear it up for us. But a younger player, certainly. How has Emery at running back for UTEP emerged as that leading rusher?
Yeah, and I'm glad you pointed that out, because he is a redshirt freshman. I think he needed last year, that redshirt year, to really learn and adjust to the higher level of play. And, I mean, this year he's tough as nails. He's one of the leaders, no doubt. He's assumed that role. And, look, I mean, when you watch him Saturday, Daniel, you'll get a kick out of him, because this guy has a club for a hand right now. He's playing with a broken wrist on his left side, and it has not let him affect him. In fact, he's even catching passes out of the backfield. Like, Ashton Emery has been a real not pleasant surprise out of the backfield for this group, who thought they were going to lean on Hassan Wilson, the Charlotte transfer, and in reality, they've leaned on their high school product from Rockwall, Texas, Ashton Emery. Can't say enough good things about him. I think he's been outstanding this year, getting into a leadership role. Last week, career high in rushing yards against New Mexico State. Like, there's so many positives you could take away from Ashton Emery, and he leaves it all on the field. This guy will come out of the game like never, unless you have to drag this guy off the field to take him off the game. So this guy's super impressive. Really liked him all season long, and just a real big standout for the Miners.
Elsewhere, in terms of offensive standouts, you know, a name I was looking at in preseason, just kind of familiarizing myself with different Conference USA members, Kenny Odom at wide receiver. I guess you could have predicted that I'd be looking his direction. Even in the video game, I recall this summer, I just felt like, not that the video game is exactly a replication of what you'd see in real life, but Odom, a talent at 5'10", at wide receiver. How has he factored into the pass-catching group this year? And also Davis, the name you mentioned earlier, at receiver as well, just who have been the top targets for Locklear so far.
Yeah, I think the way you would characterize UTEP's receivers is it's boom or bust, right? They want the big plays, they want the exciting type of plays, the deep passes, the deep catches, all of those. That's what they're going to feast on in the passing game. And I look at Kenny Odom, and man, they leaned on him so heavily early on in the year. To right now, I'm just looking at him and thinking, man, this is a guy that UTEP fans should just thank. I mean, he's taken a beating all season long as well. They've had to rely on him heavily all season long. Like, this guy is truly a mainstay in the wide receiver core. And for a guy like Kenny Odom to be as good as he's been, as productive as he's been a good surprise. I mean, I'll say this, like last game, I don't think he played his best, but he had the go-ahead touchdown late in the game for the Miners. And if the defense hadn't surrendered a touchdown in less than a minute, we'd probably be leading off the show here today talking about Kenny Odom, what a game changer he is. He truly is, even with the loss. He truly is a game changer. He flips the field. He's as speedy as it is. He's a smaller type of receiver, and he's a junior. So I know that this coaching staff would love more than anything to keep him for next year. But at the same time, I mean, you talk about a junior going to be a senior for his final year. You wonder, could this guy go off to a big school and really shine at a higher level? Like, I don't know. I think there's never going to be a coach who involves Kenny Odom as much as Scotty Walden does with this offense. But, at the same time, you want to see a guy like him get national exposure or even have a chance to play on Sundays, which this guy has that kind of caliber. He's just a little undersized. That's the only thing you'd say against him, but tough as nails and can really catch the ball.
For Odom, it's 5 touchdowns receiving this year. Maybe looking to add to it in that last chance in the regular season at Delaware on Saturday. And things looming like that, the offseason looming. UTEP confirmed this will be the last game of the season for the Miners. Delaware doesn't control its own destiny, but can at least give itself a chance with a win on Saturday. So in the back of folks' minds, is it the last chance to see some of these players in the UTEP uniform and in the Delaware uniform? And that could apply to Odom, like you're saying. But I want to, before we pivot from offense entirely, now offensive line, how has UTEP's offensive line shaped up this season? Blocking for multiple quarterbacks now. It's settled into Locklear. But how has UTEP's offensive line held up over the course of this season?
I think it's okay. I think they're probably right in the middle of the pack conference as far as talent-wise and as far as productivity. They haven't had too many injuries to their mainstay players like Mark Robinson, James Williams, Ivan Escobar. Those guys have stayed relatively healthy, which is kind of the first thing you look at. Joseph Immediato is the local guy who stands out as well. And really the only spot they're flipping around is, whether it's Jaquan Toney, they even threw in Tyrone McDuffie in on the right side. Like I believe it's the right tackle position. They've kind of flipped that one around a little bit. But nonetheless, aside from those guys and aside from just that, the productivity on the line is there. They're going to miss some of these guys next year, like, the likes of Ivan Escobar. Last year, the Miners had to completely retool their line. So if UTEP's able to have continuity on their offensive line with some of these starters returning next year, I think that'll be a big thing. I think you can target Mark Robinson, James Williams, maybe even Tyrone McDuffie as guys who can return next year and, be productive, be standouts for them up front. And if they have to retool that offensive front, that's going to be a tougher thing. I mean, we know how prime offensive linemen are in the transfer portal, and that's going to be a thing to kind of look out for.
On defense for UTEP, checking out the forced fumbles department, a team high 3 forced fumbles by Jaden Wilson at linebacker. That probably has Delaware fans' attention, with Delaware putting the ball on the ground more than Hens fans can stomach. So how much does Wilson stand out on this defense? How big a role have forced turnovers played on this UTEP defense? Because it's a major point of emphasis for Delaware here in the late season.
Yeah, I would say the defense in general has been pretty solid this year for UTEP. They'd like to force more turnovers than they're currently doing right now, but still doing a pretty nice job forcing turnovers. You point out Jaden Wilson. He's a local guy. He's out of Austin High School here in El Paso. He's a really good face for this defense. He's going to be a leader for this defense moving forward into next year. I think this team should think of him as one of their top leaders, top returning production kind of linebackers as well. And this guy is just, he has a nose for the football. He can hit gaps in a big way, and playing alongside, the FBS leader in tackles in Micah Davey, that's a huge thing in itself. I mean, Micah Davey is somebody who right now 113 tackles on the season, and then you look at him on his career, over 430 tackles in total. Like, this guy is outstanding. He's had such a productive season. Every single game you look at, we're talking double-digit games in tackles for Micah Davies. So those two guys provide an excellent 1-2 punch. Jaden Wilson's the guy who maybe forces some of those turnovers, but Micah Davies is also capable of doing that as well. There was an interception that was called back in the Battle of I-10 against New Mexico State, where Micah Davies had a nice pick, but it was called back. So Micah Davey has that turnover power as well.
A heck of a linebacker duo there, and I was getting to Davey as soon as I could right after, but you touched on him, and Delaware folks can kind of remember over the years linebacker tandems or a trio of linebackers that's so vital in the center of the defense, and Delaware certainly relying on linebacker play as well this year. But this is about UTEP, and this is about how UTEP's looking in the home stretch of the year as we round this one out. Adrian, thanks again so much for catching up with us. We were saying it's too bad we had to wait this long to connect in the season schedule, but we're thankful we get to do it now around Thanksgiving time. UTEP at Delaware after UTEP fell to New Mexico State by a field goal. That was a heck of a finish, a rivalry meeting. The last time those teams will meet before the realignment happens with UTEP to the Mountain West. What's the emotional response that you expect from this team, Adrian? Because you're there on the ground, there for the availabilities. You're seeing it in El Paso. Do you have a sense of just how UTEP will rally to now make a cross-country trip into the cold weather? Delaware folks hoping maybe UTEP won't respond to the chilly conditions of late November.
Yeah, I would say this, Daniel. The problem that UTEP has is what kind of motivation will they have? It wasn't hard to motivate them in a rivalry game, but to go out to Delaware to play in the cold, to play against a team who is inspired, who is playing some really good football, I think it's going to be a challenge for the Miners going into Saturday. This has been a really bad season, Daniel. There's just no way to put it. I mean, yes, you can see tangible improvements in certain areas, to be fair. Yes, it's only year 2 of Scotty Walden, but I would scrap this year's outcome if I was UTEP and just try to move forward the best I can, because fans are frustrated. You look on social media, it won't take you long before you see how upset fans are after this year, and you understand where they're coming from, because they were kind of banking on a much better campaign, a much better season than what they've seen so far. And I think for the future of UTEP and how this team starts to have more success, they're going to really need to find just more instead of just trying to find more motivation points. Just go out there and simply win. Like, winning is, I said it earlier, winning is an attitude. I feel like UTEP has to embrace some kind of different attitudes going into the spring, and instead of having this woe is me, or we're in this bad position again, get yourself a win. Like, go out there and have that kind of attitude to win games, and to finish out the season with 5 straight losses, that would be awful. So Daniel, I hope they go into Saturday a little bit more motivated to try to I guess steer the ship to where they're 3-9 and match last year's output, instead of taking a step back in the win-loss column.
Well, Adrian, we definitely have a better sense of there is a feel maybe of that desperation, last chance in the season coming on Saturday. And from a Delaware perspective, Delaware has already gotten popped by Sam Houston. Now, that was on the road, but not long ago, the Bearcats beating the Blue Hens. So UTEP's got to be looking at things saying, doesn't UTEP have a win over Sam Houston? Yep. I mean, Conference USA, Delaware's learned lessons. Delaware's learned tough lessons. So this one looking at, as far as the spread looks like, as far as taking a sense of what that version of events might be, a one possession type of game forecast. So Adrian, we're excited for it. Hey, thank you for squeezing us in so much. And share, folks, real quick. Folks can stream your Miner Talk program nationally, I would assume, right? Over at 600 El Paso.
Yeah, thank goodness. We've got an app, 600 ESPN El Paso. We also have online listening at 600ESPNElPaso.com. And then shout out to our guys at Inspo Lens. We're live on YouTube, live on Twitter, live on everything. So it's a lot of fun to do that. And I appreciate you, Daniel, in a big way. Give me the points for Delaware. Give me the Blue Hens on Saturday.
The points for Delaware, as far as the key points.
No, give me the spread. Give me the spread for Delaware. I got the Blue Hens in this one.
Okay, that flew right over my head. Gosh, I must be like turkey comatose before it even gets to be that time. Oh, I got you though, Adrian. Now, hey, thanks again so much. We'll try to connect in basketball season.
Let's do it, man.
We can't get enough probably.
I'm all in. Let's do it.
Awesome. Adrian Broaddus over at 600 ESPN El Paso. Now, Feathers and Field Goals continues right after this.
Thanks, Dan, for running our minor talk there with Adrian Broaddus. Dan, I'm just going to pass it back to you. What is your 3 and out? I guess your 1 and out needed for the Blue Hens heading into the regular season finale.
I've got a survive and advance vibe about us this week, Bryce, thinking about playing for the season. This is a group that came together. Thinking about a lot of returnees on this Delaware roster, a lot of carryover, a lot of understanding of Coach Carty's operation and the expectations, and Coach Rojas leading the way on defense, especially as well. So I look at this as the culmination of all of that. And I know November's taking twists and turns on us now, and I think it certainly is aggravating to everybody. Like, we're a very positive-minded podcast as a general matter, but thinking about Liberty game, falling out of contention in that one, thinking about Wake Forest, being embarrassed with a trip up at Sam Houston, like these things all add up, and it does create a lot of negative vibes, and those are all justified, and we feel them with you. But at the same time, I look at it as now, okay, what's one essential thing to get a dub against UTEP, find a way? I'm looking at points off turnovers. Of course, that presupposes that Delaware's defense is able to nab a takeaway here and there. But I think about the Louisiana Tech game, and we did see Delaware take it away. I'd like to see Delaware's offense. Can it have that killer instinct and convert off of those takeaways, or at least one takeaway, ideally, that Delaware would have? Because any chance for this game to flip in terms of having a decisive shift in momentum in Delaware's direction, given that UTEP's making a longer trip, time change, colder conditions expected, UTEP coming off an emotional season with its own disappointments, and most recently, Brody, you touched on what UTEP's been through. So I look at it as Delaware's got to play with that edge. Can Delaware give itself an edge in terms of getting some points off turnover?
Well, you alluded to Brody, so Brody, what's your takeaway?
Honestly, I wish I had a lot of analysis for this game, but I just absolutely don't, because the bottom line is just win, baby. That's my 3 and out topic, is just win, baby, because kind of coming in after the La Tech game, you're thinking, oh, we have it's easy. We're gonna get 7 wins, maybe even 8. The way that we played today, that's kind of the vibe. Then you drop one at Sam Houston that you should have probably had, and then you lose to Wake Forest in just a demoralizing way. The whole time losing Dylan Traynor and Joe Silver in the process. Comes down to this, this game decides if this is a wasted season or if the FBS move was worth it in a way. I mean, you look at this, if you can make 6-6, it doesn't matter what we did all season, because that is the benchmark. That's the benchmark for what a successful season looks like. We talked about it. Delaware left a lot of meat on the bone this year, but I just don't want them to leave this on the bone, because it's right there for the taking. This UTEP team is not very good. They have to come across the continent to play. Don't let them give you problems, because no team in the FBS is a cakewalk. We learned that with Sam Houston. I think if we played at UMass, maybe is the only away game that we would comfortably win without trying in the way that we would have to against an FBS opponent. This isn't the FCS anymore. Even in a game that you think you should have, you need to put 4 quarters of effort out there. There needs to be sound coaching decisions all game. This is the last game that some of these seniors are playing. I mean, all of them are playing, obviously, if they don't win this game. Of course, there is bowl implications, and that wasn't the focus of the coaching message against Sam Houston. It needs to be here. So just win. I don't care what it takes. I don't care if it's a Louisiana Tech type win where you win by 1 point late in the game. And I don't care if it's a Middle Tennessee type game where you lead for 2 possessions the entire game. You just have to go out there and win, because this UTEP this UTEP team wants to give you the game. You have to let them and take it. And that's all I can say about this game going forward.
Brady, I think you said, I'm sorry I can't give a lot to this because just win. I'm kind of with you. It's I feel for a lot of the seniors, a lot of the sixth year or fifth year seniors that have been a part of this program since when me or you or Dan or anyone was a student at the school. I feel for them just leaving a positive mark on their journey here as Blue Hens. We've always talked about November being a tough month for this team, and Dan brought it up with Fintan, and this schedule might not feel that different because the FCS season would have been over by now, and like this Saturday is a first round playoff game. That's kind of how I'm treating this. This is a first round playoff game ahead here, hosting UTEP. If we win this game, maybe this doesn't affect it as much, but we also have to root for some teams to lose for us to have a 13th game. That's what I'm kind of focused on, is focus on yourselves, win the game, and then we'll worry about what happens after this. Us as the Feathers and Field Goals, we have no clue what we're recording after this because we're letting the story of the football team and I guess the other football teams that are 5-5 or 5-6 telling the story for us the rest of the way. So I'm rooting for a win. Dan,
the big surprise, shocker. Yeah,
Dan, what's your score prediction?
So we've learned, nothing is simple in Conference USA. I think this conference got a great chance to, over the years, if it can keep this core of programs together, those returning for the next academic year. I'm thinking this has a chance to be a good bit of parity in the league going forward. Just briefly stepping outside to a big picture, and we'll get in close, zoomed in on the score prediction. Liberty's not just automatically showing up and running through the conference because of the finances that Liberty enjoys. Like the Conference USA, like nothing is straightforward. The message, yes, Brody's correct, just win. But I don't see this being more than a single possession game. I mean, I don't have reason to think that. Like all of a sudden now, I was getting a little excited. I'm going down to see my buddy at Sam Houston, getting to play in Texas again for a Delaware football game, first time in a while. And I was all juiced up and I got ahead of myself. And the score prediction there was not, I was off base. Like I was just wrong. I got to own that. So I'm not falling for that in this situation. Looking at a late season game, let's not act like UTEP isn't very motivated to also salvage the end of its season and try to do justice for its season. I do think Delaware's theme is, hey, let's give the end of this season, possibly, hopefully not the end of the full season, but let's give Delaware's overall season justice by getting a Blue Hens win over UTEP. It does feel like Delaware has been close in games too and been competitive enough spots to where it should be a 500 or better team on paper. We'd hope for that. But, UTEP's sitting here thinking, heck, the Miners are getting for sure one last shot at this. So we're going to see a situation where I think Delaware is going to be in a one-score game. I got Delaware winning, though, because, heck, I can't overcomplicate this. What did I have in preseason? What was my prediction for record? Not trying to sound like I'm not trying to be a smart I'm not trying to be smart I'm not trying to be the smartest guy. Like, I'm not the only person who was talking about possibly 6-6 overall. I'm just saying that I can't go against my preseason prediction. So I'm sticking with Delaware, a 6-6 overall regular season. I'm going to go with Delaware. At home is an important factor here. We'll see how Delaware responds. Thanksgiving week, wouldn't expect the same kind of student turnout. That's been a high student turnout this year. Wouldn't expect that in this case. Honestly, in general, you think about earlier kickoff, fans getting in from tailgates, don't know what the kind of, juice will be necessarily in the building right at kickoff, even after the senior day ceremony. You just don't know how the juice is going to be in the building. So that's something that maybe keep an eye on. But I am going to look at Delaware in this one as a winner. One possession. Going to go with Delaware by the final score of 29-26. No more than three. And I'll just hover around those 4 scores or so each, right around 28 each. That's going to be my methodology here.
Well, I kind of feel similar vibes. I was the only one not to pick the team 6+ wins on the podcast this year.
You were tempted, though. Don't sell yourself short. You were tempted.
I was tempted, but I wanted to take the half glass empty. But week 14 against UTEP, I'm taking the half glass full. I am taking Delaware 31-28 against UTEP. Brody, sell us home.
Well, I got to do my headgear selection as I do for every show. I got my UTEP helmet down here. I have my Delaware helmet over here. But this is an easy one because it has to be an easy one. It's not going to be it's not going to be an easy game, but it's an easy choice for me to make. Hey man, give me the Blue Hens. They have to win this game. There's no way around it. They need to win. After dropping Sam Houston, they have to win this game. After dropping a really tough one against Western Kentucky early in the year, this team is really good at home. This team wins at home. And they have to win this game if they want their season to continue, if they want to honor the seniors that are leaving this year, if they want to solidify the FBS move as a move worth making. This team's got to win, and I think they're going to. Give me Delaware 24-20. I think it's going to be low scoring. I think there's not going to be a lot of energy in this stadium. I think the Hens are going to have to create the energy for themselves. UTEP has a great pass defense. I think it's going to be a grinded out game.
Good point about that pass defense. Glad you mentioned that.
Talking about 3 and out, I wanted to use one more 3 and out for the regular season. The first is thank you to Brody Hamilton for everything they provided for us at Furthers of Field Goals this regular season in terms of elevating our production in terms of audio and visual format. The second being my co-host Dan Steenkammer. Just thank you to everything that they've provided for interviews and analysis and just feedback on this whole mindset. And my third 3 and out is to you, the listener, for being with us for hopefully another episode of the season. If you're new here, please like and subscribe. But thank you to everyone that have been with us. We're still navigating what we're going to do in the post-football season, but just wanted to thank everyone involved with our end that have been a part of this journey of the first season of FBS. And this is the start, but not the end of what we're going to do at Feathers and Field Goals for the future. And just wanted to thank everyone involved. So for now, before we get into the game week, just thank everyone involved and go Blue Hens for the rest of this week. So thank you for joining us for another episode at Feathers and Field Goals, and go Hens.